Hello everyone and welcome to part 4, the final part in our Meet the Muse series. In this section of the course, you're going to be honoring your muse. We're going to be nurturing, illuminating, and anointing. We're going to be bringing a depth to the background, as well as honoring her and your journey as we come to a close in this process. So I hope you enjoy what's coming up next, and I will see you at the canvas. All right, so we've brought our muse forth. Her features and face are pretty much done. Now it's time to tend to the background and the symbols that want to come through. So we're going to be playing around with our environment, similar to the face of the muse, going back and forth from lights and darks. So this will be when we're picking our final colors. And I had some flowers in here that I've gotten lost in hair, so I'm going to bring those back. I'm going to use turquoise and white. And here we go. Just using because my flowers are quite big, I'm using a thicker ended brush. And I'm just double dipping my brush. I'm putting turquoise and white on here, not mixing it. And I'm going to come in and start to add them. I'm leaving a bit of a glow. I'm leaving that line that I drew to hold the flowers in that contains them. I know that I want the flowers to overlap a bit. Coming in with just white now, adding some detail to the flowers. Still haven't washed or rinsed my brush yet. I'm going in the direction of the petals. I do want that strand of hair to come across, so I'm going to leave that one in front. So I'll try and leave a little bit of a glow there, meaning I'm not going to come right up to the hair strand. I don't want it to look like I've boxed it in too much. This is also a time when you can color outside of your lines, so if there's something in your background you want to change the shape of, you can go ahead and do that. Just going to be playful with my background. And I know that I did put a couple of the blossoms up here. And I'm going to add a couple little ones over here. Let me step back. Okay, I'm going to stop there for that. Switching to a smaller brush and my darker color. I'm going to use a darker, an indigo, a dark blue. I'm going to do a little bit of outlining with the flowers, knowing that I can always add more, and that I can always come in with purple and do a little more with the hair. The great thing about acrylic is it dries so fast that you can quickly cover something. You don't have to wait super long. So I'm using the dark blue for my stems and a little bit of the petal work. Not going to outline it too perfectly. And my paint is still wet underneath, so it is picking up a little bit of the white and blending it. Adding some leaves now in the same blue. They're mostly hidden. Need a little more, and then I might try adding a bit of white to the leaves, just to give them a little bit of depth. Maybe just on one side. Maybe even a little bit inside the dots here. Double dipping my brush. Might even use some of this blue to outline the hair a little bit. Not a whole bunch, but just to add a little bit of the shadows in. Just touch them up a little, and then I'll probably come back with purple. I'm kind of looking into where my shadows were before. Maybe over here. Might turn this into a leaf. Grabbing a tiny bit of the white. A little bit around these edges with the white. Sometimes when we use a color straight from the tube, it looks flat, so just by adding a little dab of white and not outlining the entire thing again, but just in little areas, makes it stand out a little more. I'm going to step back and see what else my muse is asking for. I think she's wanting a crown or something on her head. If there's something that your muse is asking for and you don't know how to draw an exact replication of it, what you can do is think of something else that represents it, or a symbol. Break it down to its simplest forms. What does it mean to you? And then go from there to create a symbol that can represent that which your muse is asking for. So I'm going to put a moon crown here on my muse. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to turn out. Sometimes she asks for things that you just don't know the answer to, but you just have to kind of trust in the process and let what happens happen. So I'm going to use a dark color first because it's easier to bring light from the dark. So I'm sticking with my indigo color here. I'm going to put a crescent moon right here on her forehead. Now, before I put that on her head, I thought I was going to make them like a yellow or gold color, but now I'm wanting them to be more of the gray or silver color. But we'll see. We'll see what she wants. I want it to look like it's circling around her head, so I'm going to put this one's going to come up a little higher here. This one's going to be a half moon. I think I'll make it the whole thing and only one side will be illuminated. And then another moon right here. It's almost like they're orbiting her. There's nothing really holding them on. Oops. I got distracted. Baron's back. Alright, let's see. I'm going to need some more of this indigo. And this one right here, so I'm pretending it's coming like this. Right here will be a half moon, but half of it will be dark. And then another full moon here, I think. All right, let me see. Thinking about how I'm going to create these moons. Because I use the indigo, I know that adding yellow now is going to make it green. So I'm going to play with a bit of the white, which is helpful because it's similar to what we did down here with our flowers, so it will help tie the piece together. Again, I haven't washed my brush because I want it to mix together and I don't want it to be consistent. If the color starts to be a consistent color, then I'll clean my brush and double dip again. A teacher once told me to be consistently inconsistent. I'm going to imagine that the dark phase of the moon is on the opposite side. Okay, I did look up a little reference because I decided that I wanted my moons to actually be in order. But what I've done is I've done them, I'm in the northern hemisphere, but my sequence has done it for the southern hemisphere. It'll make me do it southern hemisphere, but that's all right. I'll know what it means. So we would go from the full to the half to the crescent to the dark moon and then back to a half. Wait a minute, wait a second. I start at the full moon. Hold on. This is the crescent. Yes, this one would have been the dark if I was in the northern hemisphere. And then the full moon. Full moon. Alright, so for the dark moon, I am going to outline it a little bit. No. Changed my mind and going with my original. This one's going to be I'm going to stick with my original even though it's not correct. Go, and when that dries I'll put some dark around that again just to kind of get rid of that white line. So again I'm thinking, what else is my muse asking for? She wants something up here. I'm not quite sure what that is yet. Okay, while I'm waiting for that to dry, what I might do is come play in the hair a little bit. Touch up some things there while we're waiting. So I've got my purple out, and I'm going to come down and just touch up some of the hair here, maybe add just a dab of the blue to help it blend in here. We had also mixed some white in. And the understrand here is going to add a little more blue, just to give it a bit of shadow. A bit of highlight on the top maybe. Let some of these strands drop down now that we know where the flowers are. Not going over everywhere that we touched before, but just touching it up a little bit. Adding in some highlights and some darks. Don't forget to step back every once in a while and just see if everything's jiving together. see what needs to be pushed back, like this layer of hair is in behind this one, so I want to start a little darker here, but then maybe the highlights will come out as the hair curves. Knowing that it cuts through here too. A little darker at the top. Alright everyone, sorry about that. The camera cut out and I didn't realize, but all I did was add a little more hair down at the bottom, going back and forth with the lights, filled in a little bit of areas in between the flowers and a tiny bit by the fox. I didn't want to put too much here because I really wanted this strand to stick out, but I might use the indigo in here so that it pops out a bit. And now I'm going to come up in here and do the same thing. I'm going to bring that out just a little more because it's the closest piece of hair to us. Okay. Coming up to the top, I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. It's closer. The darker part right here where the part is. Letting it blend together a little bit. I'm not going to recover all the things that we did before, but just enough to tie it together and bring some strands out. I'm using that indigo now in the shadow parts of the hair. Blending it with the purple. Bring a little bit out here. Stepping back now and then just to get a sense of what's happening. Making some of it a little more wispy or wavy. Going back again between dark and light. Not cleaning my brush off unless I'm getting a solid color. And if your brush gets too dry, you can dip it in the water just so things go smooth again. Now under here, I think I want it to be a little darker. Just because it's the hair that's farther back. I'm just going to come around the spaces that are already there. I'm going to get some more of my indigo. And it's going to be generally going in the same direction. And I'm going to leave that glow between the flowers and by the face. I don't want to bump right up next to it. Same with this layer of hair here. So I'm just coming in the spaces between. Generally going in the same direction as the hair on top, or filling an area in and then coming back over it with my brush while it's wet. Once I get it in there, I might come back through and add some strands. We'll have to step back and see. Okay, and I am going to add just a little bit of white now, still keeping it fairly dark. Just to give a hint of the direction of the hair flow. Now the hair here is coming from the back of the neck down here, so I'm going to let it come from the back. And just kind of flow outward. And the stuff up here is more from behind the ear. Might let this one cross over a little bit. Now my muse is asking for a little bit more chaos up here before we add anything else. I still want what we have done to be seen. But I'm going to use some colors that are already in there. I'm going to play with turquoise again to bring some up, and maybe dark green and some of the white, and maybe add red. We'll see. I'm going to start with some drips. And I'm making it really watery so that it drips down. And I want to tend this space, so I've got my paper towel because I don't want it necessarily to go into the hair. Now you could let your hair dry as well. And that would be a safer option if you didn't want to lose anything here. I might come into this area a little bit. I like this yellow color, so I don't know if I want to completely lose it. definitely don't want it in the moon. Take that back a bit. The other thing you could do is lay your canvas flat. When you get all the drips that you want. Grab some of the turquoise here. Might go around some of the shapes that are here. Might come down here around the fox. Kind of like the color that's coming out when I add the turquoise to this green. It's called phthalo green. I'm going to see what happens with some red. Just kind of coming into the in-between spaces. Trying not to let it mix too much with the green because we'll get a brown. So think about what colors your muse is asking for and what those colors mean to you or to her. For me, red ties in with our red thread connection. I like how the red is mixing down here. It's looking kind of neat around the fox and the purple. Back to the green and the turquoise. Maybe making it more like a glow around her head. Yeah, I'm liking the turquoise there. Not bumping right up next to her head, so some of that layer from before is still there. So I'm just gently touching some of these areas that need a little bit of tending, a little bit of honoring. Adding a little water to my brush because I don't want it to be as thick there, and I'm going to add some of the green just to change the color a bit. And I'm not trying to make anything in particular, I'm just letting the brush inform me and the muse inform me. I'm using a lot of water right now, just to keep things sort of transparent and loose. Just seeing what shapes are already here. might rub some of the red out. Now remember, your muse will ask you to do your own colors, so don't feel like you have to follow mine. There's a lot of back and forth on mine. I'm going to play with the green and turquoise again. I don't want to lose everything that we had before. But I like how this turquoise was here, so I'm leaving it. And I like the things that happened over here. Now around my moons, I want to add a little bit of glow. First I'm going to try and get rid of this. I didn't even see that drip come down. So I know this has been dry for a few weeks, so I'm just going to take a wet cloth and wipe it off. If it had been damp, though, it would have taken some of the skin color off. So just watch out for that. I'm going to take the white with just a tiny touch of the turquoise, just enough to tint it. Brush is fairly wet, and I'm going to start with this moon right here. Around it a bit. Just want a touch of it. Get this brush fairly wet. And I'm going to make a glow around these moons. So I'm scrubbing my brush. This is one of my crummy brushes. Try not to bump up completely to the moons. Mixing a little bit of the purple from the hair, which might not have been completely dry. I'm not going to use my outliner brush to get around it. That didn't quite do what I wanted. So I'm just putting a bit of white and pushing the paint outwards. Just going to step back and make sure it's doing what I want. That purple's pretty purple, so I'm going to add a bit more white. Going to let this mist move across this light. This is something you could do to anything on your canvas to make it pop or to make it look like it's coming from another world or dimension. Add a glow or a mist. Don't want too much water on your brush, but you do want it to spread a bit. I'm just going to pull it away from whatever it is you're putting a glow around. And I'm just making it kind of tuck behind her head a bit so it looks like the crown goes all the way around. Next, I'm going to add some stars. So I'm using a small brush, and I might start by just adding a few in around the crown here. I'm just doing some small little dots. You could also make tiny circles for variation. Let them come up into her hair. To make one look like it's sparkling, you can you make your circle. Put one here. Make your circle, and then you can have the sparkle coming out from the top, the bottom, and the sides. Tip would be to let your white be tinted by either a turquoise or a yellow or a gray so that it's not completely white. I think that I'm mostly going to keep them around here. Sometimes the honoring and the tending and the nurturing can be tedious. If you pick something that's got lots of pattern, then sometimes it can become tedious. But see if you can breathe through it, take breaks when you need to, and let it become more of a practice of mindfulness. With small brushes, they tend to dry out quite a bit faster, so you might need to dip them a little more in your water. If you want to, if you're doing stars, you could put a constellation of your zodiac in, or of loved ones. That's one way to incorporate another layer of intention. You could also have the different stars or bright stars represent people or events in your life. Maybe you want to take your stars and think about times when your muse has really come out. When does your muse like to play? When does her star shine brightly? Since I have a small brush here, I'm going to do just a little bit of messy outlining around my flowers. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be thinking about what else wants to live here. And I'm going to want to tie these red lines that I did here over here as well. One tip is if you use a new color or a new design or new shape, something you might want to add is that design, shape, or color in 3 other areas of your canvas. So because I have the red here, I have it in this corner, I'm going to try and find one more spot to put it. And same with these turquoise. I've got the turquoise here, here, and a little bit is mixed in up here as well. So I might try to find another place, but I feel like that's okay for now. I haven't forgot about my little animal friends. I think that their purpose will be revealed to me pretty soon. So you could use a small brush to do some outlining. You could use a Sharpie marker if you have one, a Sharpie paint pen. You could use Jane Davenport has a line of these little, I don't know if I can find one right away. And they're like a bottle with a needle tip, and you can fill it with white paint or whatever color you want, and a bit of water, and it makes it look like an ink. And you can go through. You could try it with gel pen. I've used gel pen before on my drawings or on canvas, but it tends to wipe away when it gets wet. It's not so permanent. I'm going to use my small brush for today because I think that might be what most of us might have available. But you could use anything you want. I often enjoy using the pens only because I find I get messier and I don't have to redip my paintbrush. But let's see what happens here. I am going to move back a bit, and I want to be messy. And the lighter I push on my brush, that'll be the trick. The lighter I push, the thinner the line. The heavier I push, the thicker. I want a thin line. Because I don't want this to be an outline. I'm going to move my water a little closer to me. Remember, if your paint is getting muddy, check your water. Because once your water is dirty, it doesn't clean your brush so much and it tints it, especially if you're using white. My water is looking pretty gray right now. I should probably change it very soon. I like my marks to be loose and scribbly, so by holding back on my brush, it takes away that control. I'm just going to scribble along my flowers, making the white paint really white, or really wet, so that's like an ink. Go along these leaves here. Letting it just be part of the design. These loose, scribbly lines. You could even do handwriting around them if you wanted to. Now that those lines are in, I'm just going to touch up the purple again for the hair. I might take some of the turquoise, just a hint of that darker blue, and just put it underneath here. Make it a little more like a shadow. Anywhere I think it might overlap. And then using the same pink brush as before and double dipping my turquoise and the white, I'm just going to come to the edges of those shadows to let them blend into the flower. I'm not filling the whole thing again, just adding a little layer, letting what's there still shine through. And because I have the turquoise on here, I might just add a little bit around here again. I might put a little glow around these flowers. My brush is very dry, just using the color that's already on there. Again, just tying in the elements of the stars here. I've got them on both sides, and then I'll add some down here. Still not sure what lives here. But now I've been called into the animals here. So we've honored some of the spaces. They've all been touched again. I'm going to do a little bit of anointing with some gold. I'm using a round brush, and this is a gold ink or paint. And I'm going to add it in different areas, but I'm going to start with just outlining my animals here. Kind of like we did with the flowers, just keeping it loose. I'd add some gold around the red over here, some streaks. Maybe around some edges of the flowers. Some of the bird is in behind the cosmos. Adding it in some of the other areas. Not fully outlining, just giving a hint of it. anointing them, giving them a little love. Maybe a little around her too. The gold seems to bring things forward, so anywhere that I want the light to hit. I give her some really light strands in her hair, just where there's already some strands where the light hits. So as I'm asking my muse what's living in this corner, because it's very empty, the answer is, for me, some more leaves in this dark blue to tie it in, because we've got lots of dark down here. So I'm going to put a little more up here and then add some of the same designs to tie it together. In turquoise to tie these together so they're not just a solid blue. I'm going to tie some of this red and gold over here. And while I'm touching up with some of the gold, I'm going to go around some of the leaves. And I'm curious because my fox and my swallow are so dark. They're kind of flat because remember I painted them originally in just black. I'm going to see what happens now if I put the indigo over top. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm just going to add some in. And I might experiment with the swallow to see what happens with the turquoise. But again, I'm not bumping all the way up to the lines that I created before in the gold. So the black will be around the very edge. So we're always leaving a little bit of what came before. Our muse has many stories. She has many layers. And it's okay to let those shine through. I'm wondering if I choose the same color for the fox or not. I do feel like she's asking for just a little bit of gold line there while I think about the fox. I want the fox to stay dark. If I add the red, it'll turn brown. If I add the purple, it's too close to the hair. Could experiment with the indigo and white for him. Let's see. No, I think I want more indigo. I think I'll keep him like the bird. I am liking the midnight gradient though, it's coming down. Alright, so now I'm going to step back from the muse. Right now she's not asking for much more. So if there is anything else you want to add to anoint her, or anything else she's calling for, maybe it could be glitter, it could be words, it could be more symbols, it could be design, it could be shadows and lights. So take a second to step back and listen to her and see what she has to say, if there's anything else she's calling for. When you're done that, what I want you to do is take out your journal or a piece of paper and set her somewhere where you can see her and ask her what message she has for you. I want you to think back to our first class together and what you wrote on the canvas as your intention. Try and connect it to that. What does she have to say for you about that, your original questions? Does she have new questions for you? Does she have a message for you? If she has any companions or symbols that have shown up on the canvas, ask her how those relate as well. And I want you to pretend that she's speaking to you. I want you to write a letter from the muse to yourself. So it'll say, for me it'd be, Dear Jennifer, and then she'll start to tell me all the things she wants me to know. And maybe you could set a timer. If you're having a hard time, set a timer for 3 to 5 minutes and write, or just write to fill a page or two, and then just free write. If you get stuck, just doodle, and as soon as something starts to come, don't question it, just write it down. And when you're done writing, I will see you back at the canvas.